This woman went undercover to investigate the largest internet porn site in the world. In these secretly recorded videos, what you'll hear from employees is shocking, and the danger that these sites pose to minors is staggering.
She was like 14, her video was online and had millions of views. We weren't taking it seriously, you know?
She was also in the entertainment industry, and her stories paralleled my own experience as a child sexual abuse survivor.
Just being in Hollywood, being around those people really desensitized me to predatory behavior.
One of the things that my abuser did to groom me was the use of pornography. We'll be discussing all of that and more coming up in this exclusive interview. Today I have a special guest. Her name is Arden Young. She's a journalist at Sound Investigations. She's also a former Hollywood child actor. And she recently did some undercover work secretly recording Pornhub employees. You can find these videos on her X and Instagram page. So go ahead and follow all of her accounts. You can even find the Sound Investigations YouTube channel where all the videos are there. She's been interviewed by Steven Crowder, The Daily Wire, Tim Pool, and I'm just really excited that she's joining us today. Hi, Arden. Thanks so much for coming on.
Thanks so much for having me, Dylan.
Yeah, of course. So you went on some undercover dates with these employees, and they revealed a lot of shocking details about what's going on behind the scenes at the company, like how the websites run and content moderation, the age verification. So for those who haven't seen these videos, why don't you tell our audience a little bit about what you uncovered in these investigations?
Yeah, so we released a series of 7 undercover videos, I guess 8 total. There was like a mini release we did. And we uncovered a lot of different type of content. We spoke with about a dozen employees total of the parent company of Pornhub. But the revelations included very, very poor content moderation, not verifying age and consent for uploads going onto the platform, knowingly profiting off of illegal videos like trafficking and rape and different types of abuse videos that could be voyeurism, revenge porn, underage content, things like that. As well as purposefully creating ads that appeal to pedophiles and young teens to get them clicking and buying.
So these employees are admitting that Pornhub's parent company, ALO, formerly known as MindGeek, are turning a blind eye to underage videos and other illegal content being uploaded to the platform. Here's what they said themselves.
The system is so slow and they don't have enough moderators that it stays up for long enough that people can get mad and sue them. And I think that's what happens. It's hard because how do you get somebody to prove that they're above age? Because if they can get a fake ID.
You think there's like videos of underage still getting through?
Of course. You don't know who that is. We don't have consent of that person, and we're running ads. Like as a business, we're monetizing content that we don't know where this comes from. We don't know who's on that video. We don't know the age of the person on the video. This used to happen all the time, but we would just say nothing about it. Right? We'd just be like, hey, whatever. It's like something that you just shut up. Like just don't say nothing. Like just be quiet.
They also explain why they are promoting transgender and gay porn on the platform, and it's not just intended for LGBTQ audiences.
As well as purposefully marketing LGBTQ content to straight viewers in order to try to, expand the marketability of the single person.
They need to try to push stuff that's less accepted. Like putting a trans male or a trans female in a scene, you wouldn't get that on a normal mainstream site. So test it out. See if you get a bigger audience with it. See if you can convert somebody, right? Like maybe somebody who's never looked for anything like that might find it interesting and click on it.
We also learned it's not just adults that they want to convert. These employees also think it would be a good idea for children as young as 12 years old to be exposed. Are they deliberately using these internet porn sites to to get to the kids.
We did have 2 employees express their personal views that children would benefit from watching pornography.
Let's say you're 12 years old, you're still figuring out your sexuality, maybe even your gender. Wouldn't it be helpful to see, not a celebration, but just like maybe a normalization of something that you think is what you want? Let's say I was 12 and I saw like trans angels, I saw all these different sites. It would help me figure out what I do like and what I don't like. Because if you're exposed to nothing, you have no idea. And maybe you're more like pliable.
Do you think like your work might be helping LGBTQ kids like find themselves?
I mean, yeah, I'm sure. I mean, if everyone, like, you know, it shouldn't just be heterosexual people that have phones.
Some LGBTQ kids who just are so confused.
Of course. No, it's true.
And lonely and like scared, you know?
No, of course. Yeah, and it's not right for them to feel that way.
Do you think men.com is a good resource for them?
I'm sure, yeah. I mean, they'll find their kink in there, I'm sure.
He also said that content that does really well on the platform are adult performers that look like kids.
For the ads, the dudes that do the most like conversion rates are guys that look like 15, even though they're like 20 years old or like 25. So there's this one guy named like Jordy, and he just looks like a little kid, and they put him in scenes so it looks like this little kid is like having sex. But it makes a lot of money, so.
So that kind of stuff has an appeal.
Apparently, yeah.
It's extremely disturbing. As far as the company as a whole, I don't know exactly what goes on at the highest levels, but I know for a fact that age verification for users trying to access the site hurts their business.
Right.
They decided to comply with age verification laws in Louisiana. I think that was the first U.S. state to pass the ID laws to access adult content.
Following Louisiana, more states, including Utah, Mississippi, Arkansas, and Virginia, passed laws that require ID to access pornographic websites. In response, Pornhub is trying to sue.
Pornhub complained that when they complied with those laws, their traffic in Louisiana dropped by 80%.
Wow.
So their argument is that age verification laws are detrimental to their business, and they're basically just not going to put up with them. So as more and more of these laws pass across the US and across the world, they're deciding to fight. They're getting litigious with some states and maybe even other countries, and they're fighting this. They don't want these laws to pass.
Yeah, I can't believe they're suing these states. And I think you mentioned in one of your other interviews that they're defending it as their First Amendment right, you know, and here's what I just find like ironic, you know, there's so much effort to actively censor information on social media, almost even the discussion that we're having now, actual free speech, they want to censor that. But when it comes to protecting kids, having an ID system or moderating content, you know, for sites that are meant for adults, they don't want to do that or take action and say that their First Amendment is being violated when we're just talking about something like the way that you ask for an ID when it comes to buying alcohol or cigarettes.
Yeah, and I fail to understand how pornography falls under the freedom of speech umbrella. I don't get it, but somehow whenever they're talking about pornography and trying to defend their business, suddenly they're the hugest free speech advocates ever. But, you know, when I'm publishing these videos that I legally recorded and I'm trying to help people, I'm trying to help the problem of abuse being purposefully monetized, they send me legal threats telling me I need to remove it all.
What's the status with those legal threats that you're getting?
They're just threats as of now. We've gotten several of them, but they're just threats.
They can't do anything, can they?
I guess they could, and I hope they don't, because I don't want any type of conflict. But I really don't think it would look good for them to pursue actually filing a lawsuit against us, because we did everything legally. A lawsuit would just draw more attention to our videos and what we did and what we discovered. And also, it would open them up to discovery. I really don't think they want that.
I was also curious as to what made Arden interested in pursuing this story, and it started with the New York Times article in 2020, The Children of Pornhub.
The article really put this specific issue on my radar, because it's really not something I'd ever thought about in specifics before, just with how technology has kept evolving. Obviously, all the ways someone can be exploited online has evolved as well. And yeah, 2020, that article came out basically detailing all these victims' abuse videos being monetized on Pornhub, and these victims, many of which were underage, were unable to get those videos taken down. So this article was written, brought a lot of attention on Pornhub. It basically forced them to have to change their upload policy, but unfortunately that upload policy didn't fix the issues at hand. And so that's when we decided to investigate.
I read like New York Times talking about some, girl when she was under 18 had videos of her uploaded to.
She wanted to get them taken down.
Christoph's article's lead subject is Serena Fleites. When Fleites was 14, an older boy shared naked videos of her, and the videos found their way to Pornhub. Every time Fleites begged Pornhub to remove a video of her 14-year-old self, someone would re-upload the video to gain more hundreds of thousands of views.
The problem I think the way he did it, he uploaded it so it looked like she was uploading it. So they were like, you're reporting yourself, like what's going on? And they didn't have a lot of moderators, so they didn't deal with it in a timely fashion. But then after they finally took it down a long time later, it took years.
Do you think that would ever happen again?
Because there's always things, because of the nature of our industry, it would never be covered up.
Because of like the loophole?
How are you gonna tell me like who's in that video of the girl's not showing her face? Like that wouldn't hold in court. That would be the loophole that I always like. I look at that and I'm like, that's stupid, but everybody is just kind of rolling with it. So for example, like I could sign up tomorrow, I submit my ID, I'm putting all my real identification, my bank account and everything, and I just rip content from other people. Where it's like, this guy's like body and his dick look like it could be mine based on my face. I don't know, some shit like that, right? Like, okay, I'm tall, I'm slim, okay, this guy, okay, whatever, he looks kind of similar. I can just rip those videos, upload them as my own, and the people who review my video would probably be like, yeah, this is him in the video. I'd be like, yeah, it's close enough. And I'm gonna make thousands of dollars. I didn't.
And we're running on the hypothesis that this exact thing is still happening. These instances of abuse are absolutely still happening and being uploaded to the platform and monetized and profited off of. I think over 200 victims of abuse have sued the platform, and many of those cases are class action. Some have cited our videos as evidence, which is very good. There's a new class action out of Alabama. It's a child sex trafficking case against ALO. And Mike Farley and one other employee that I recorded, they were subpoenaed to come forward as witnesses. Unfortunately, Mike Farley departed from Pornhub. I believe he still retains their counsel. So now he technically, I think, doesn't have to appear as a witness at this stage, but hopefully it works out that he will have to testify, because if anyone out of all the videos that I recorded, he probably knows the most, I'm guessing. He's been there the longest. He's probably has the most seniority. He's just seen the most.
Right. And, I can only assume that the reason he left was because of the videos. I mean, he left after the videos came out.
Yeah, it seems that I don't know exactly when, but it was after the videos came out, and there's a lot of speculation as to why he left, because Pornhub is still defending him.
Before Arden became a journalist, she was in Hollywood and experienced firsthand the abusers of the industry.
I was in the entertainment industry. I grew up in Los Angeles. I entered the industry when I was like 12, and then I left in my early 20s. I experienced a lot of really inappropriate situations over the years. And I think just being in Hollywood, being around those people, and in a way being raised by industry people throughout those vital years, my teen years, really desensitized me to predatory behavior. I was hypersexualized as a child, and through my teens, I basically was taught and really believed that my value was rooted in how sexually attractive men found me, like older men. And when I was 12, in my first acting class, my acting teacher had me make out with another very young girl. I guess we're both 13 at the time. And this was in front of kids. It was in front of him. He brought in another man to come watch us do this. And it happened over and over and over again. And, we're given adjustments on how to make it more real, how to make the makeout scene more believable. And I was uncomfortable, but I was taught through so many different acting classes that feeling of discomfort was a bad thing and something I shouldn't listen to. It was something that I needed to overcome and push through, because in order to be a good actor, a real actor, there should be absolutely nothing that could ever make me uncomfortable. And that's what actors are taught in acting classes, which is like insane to me looking back, because I went through all my years actually feeling guilty when during a photo shoot or in an acting class, something made me uncomfortable. Like there were no such thing as boundaries, none. If you had boundaries in an acting class, if you looked visibly uncomfortable, many times you were accosted and humiliated by your acting teacher. And it's appalling that I ever thought that was normal or good. But I mean, that's just what it was. And there were so many people I trusted that I shouldn't have trusted. That same acting teacher who had me and that 13-year-old girl, make out with each other, he told other girls in class to do other inappropriate things. He had this other young teenage girl ride on another girl's back around the room and like bounce up and down. It was very sexual. And even at the time, I thought it was very weird.
Yeah.
And he liked directing the girls particularly to do those types of things. And then a couple of years later, I had left his class and he did contact me for sex when I was like 15.
Oh,
and luckily I said no. Luckily I didn't accept his offer, but I was so brainwashed at the time that I actually thought it was like funny.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was like, what a loser. Instead of, what? this is a huge problem. I need to tell an adult type of thing.
Were your parents ever there?
They're in the other room all the time. I mean, these things happen under their noses. I'm one of the lucky ones. I mean, my mom was constantly with me, like constantly.
Yeah.
Which is a good thing.
Absolutely.
And, but these acting classes are closed off to parents. You're not going to find a serious acting class that's open to parents. You're just not. Yeah. Because I actually think there's validity in this, but it also creates lots of problems. But a child usually acts different in front of their parents. Right. I mean, that's it. And sometimes it can get in the way of them really focusing on the material at hand.
It's such a dangerous territory.
It really is.
Yeah. I mean, like, and these stories come out all the time, like Macaulay Culkin, Corey Feldman, like they talked about these things, even these actors on these Nickelodeon shows and these teen sitcoms. It's so frequent. So like now if you're going to become a child actor, like you're really entering some dicey territory there. As a survivor of child sexual abuse, and not too long ago, I came out as a victim, talking with Arden has been really revealing for me. Thankfully, I got myself off of porn and drugs, which were things that my abuser used to groom me for a quarter of my life. Like I just have to take a moment to really thank you for this incredible work that you're doing, because it's very healing for people who might be struggling with porn addiction, or who maybe were sexually abused or victims of child pornography or something like that. It's actually healing for me because, and I'll kind of just get a little personal here. I was sexually abused. I'm a survivor of child sexual abuse, and I was groomed at age 14. I was sexually molested when I was 16 years old. One of the things that my abuser did to groom me was the use of pornography. I got hooked on porn. My abuser at the time, he actually showed me child pornography, and he was trying to normalize this stuff, and he would try to say things like, the kids in these videos are enjoying this, that it's natural, and it was just really f***ing sick stuff. And when that person Farley in the video said like, oh, it probably wasn't smart for that underage girl to put that video on there, we don't even know how that video made it on there.
Like, she knew of a video of herself on there and she wanted to get it taken down. She's embarrassed, like it's like whatever. And she was underage. She's like 14. Her video was online and had millions of views. And she was like apparently emailing the company to take it down, and we would be like, whatever, like we weren't taking it seriously, or like we would take it down, but then it gets re-uploaded, of course, because it's like you could just. But I could see like both sides of the line. It's like I definitely feel like we weren't compliant as a company. That's obvious. We didn't do the due diligence that obviously we should have, but at the same time, it's like don't make a video that ends up like it's like. Kind of like, what do you expect? But I could kind of see both sides.
That was just something that really angered me, and watching all of these stories about other victims has, really been helping me understand like what happened to me, and that's just something so invaluable. And the fact that you have the bravery to go out there, it's really changing people. I think it's incredible.
Thank you for sharing that. It's your story is really powerful, and I really admire that you're speaking about it now, because these predators in the adult industry try to claim that pornography and abuse exist completely separately. And that's just simply not true. Like we see in so many instances like your own, where pornography is a vital instrument and something that a predator uses to groom a victim. And
Yeah.
I really, really believe, and I see it over and over and over again, I'm sure you do too, in your research, that pornography and sexual abuse, there's so much overlap.
I think it was like 11 years old is the average age kids are now viewing. What do you think about that?
I mean, sounds like my age. I also did so.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, it makes sense. You know,
Yeah.
definitely associated with puberty.
Right. Like it's natural.
Yeah, exactly. But that's the thing, is that a lot of those religious groups can tell you it's not. It's got some educational aspects to it. So there's that.
There's so many.
I mean, especially with boys.
I think pornography and drugs and all these things that were used to groom me, it's what kind of kept me unconscious of these feelings that I was having, that you look at this and it's normalized for you, and then I didn't register what was happening to me as abuse. It was just something I didn't want to deal with. I was trying to drown it out, and it was a secret that I kept for many years. Like it was a secret that I was afraid to tell my fiance about, because I was afraid that she would leave me. I was afraid that, by not telling this, because we agreed not to keep secrets. So that's, and I was like told that, it would ruin my life if that's what my abuser would tell me, that if I said anything, it would ruin my life. It would ruin his and my family's life and all this. So the way that they try to keep you from having the courage to say anything, it's a lot.
I think for viewers, it's also really important to point out that for most people during the time of their abuse, especially if they're children, they actually don't realize they're being abused.
Mm-hmm.
They don't realize it because they're so manipulated by their abuser. I don't know if that was true for you, where you just didn't realize it.
Yeah, it was
You knew something. You knew you didn't enjoy this. You knew it caused you stress, but you didn't realize what it was.
Yeah.
And I think it's important to point out that there's a lot of people where it's very easy to say, oh, well, they should have said something. Why didn't they tell their parents? Why didn't they tell a trusted adult? Well, they don't realize what's happening to them. How can you expect them to be self-reporting what they're not even aware of? And that's the scary thing.
I did not realize it. At the very first time that it happened to me, I was uncomfortable, but then I was talked into being more comfortable with it. Like the grooming started before I was abused, so I was already in a place where I put so much trust in this person, because he was like a mentor, like a guru type figure. So he was, before the abuse happened, he had a lot of positive guidance in my life. What's crazy is that he was like a replacement for my father. He was like a father figure for me. And when it first happened, he would try to tell me that it was the result of society's brainwashing, that you're sexually repressed. And just to kind of give you some insight into how a pedophile's mind worked, like the way I experienced it with my abuser, he would use the word emotionally handicapped, that this is how kids are sexually repressed. All the other wisdom that he was giving me that was kind of trying to make me feel special. He would say that, you don't think the way that other people do. Him and me and a small majority of people are smarter and more enlightened than everybody else, while everybody else is just a bunch of sheep, and they're all brainwashed and programmed. These philosophies would be very enticing for me, and that's why I trusted him so much. So anything he would say about pedophilia, or the things he would tell me when showing me child pornography. Being 15 years old, I went along with whatever he told me. And being drugged, like, that didn't help. I was addicted to smoking pot, so that was like blocking out all these unconscious feelings that I had. So all that contributes to not thinking that you're abused. I've been sober for a year. The Sound of Freedom, that movie came out, and that kind of like got me thinking about it more. And I remember coming home from New York, like right after that movie came out, saying to my girlfriend, like, there's something I have to tell you, and like, I'm afraid that you're gonna leave me because I kept this secret from you. But the more that I started to tell people, the more I felt better about it. I tried to blame myself for falling into the trap of this abuser, and I'm like, why didn't I see it? When I just see that my story was so common with all these other abuse victims, I was like, wow, I'm really not alone. And for so many years, what was happening to other victims, like, I didn't realize it was happening to me.
I'm just so glad that you're in a place where you're sharing and you're recognizing that people do want to be supportive. They're not going to judge you based on it, and they're not going to blame you. I think it's the instinct to blame yourself, because these abuse situations are they're just such a mix of awkward and shame, and and you're thinking, like, if I explain this to someone else, they wouldn't understand.
Thankfully, your parents were there, but the parents with other child actors not being around, like, it kind of makes me think about when my dad wasn't around for me when the abuse was happening. Like, it's crazy that this was actually my dad's best friend, and he never suspected anything because he trusted this person. That's why pedophiles can be so successful, is they prey on kids whose parents may be neglectful or unstable or whatever it is, as long as
or like preoccupied with other things.
Anything,
and even there's so many predators. The most successful predators will befriend the parents and gain their trust.
Right.
And that's, I think, a lot of times what happens as well, but it just makes it all the more easier when the parent is absent, for sure.
While I wasn't in Hollywood, I was briefly in male modeling, and when I was at my skinniest, like, I looked scary, unhealthy. You could just see my rib cages. My whole family was freaking out about it. I had an eating disorder because of my abuse. I was just strolling down the street in the Lower East Side one day, and I was just randomly scouted.
It's so true that the modeling industry, the acting industry, I really can't think of a healthy thing that they, celebrate.
Yeah.
They, for whatever reason, really like to celebrate unhealthy things, whatever it may be.
I didn't want to be a model because of something that was caused by my abuse. And I wasn't conscious of it at the time, but I was like, wow, where you end up from being, swayed by predators, it takes you to places that you never imagined.
I don't know if you're familiar with Ricky Garcia's story.
I'm not, actually.
He was a child star. We grew up going to acting classes together. Really nice kid. I think it was Disney Channel. He had a show. And he came out a few years back and revealed that his manager had been repeatedly, like, him throughout this entire time when he was a kid, being on shows and everything. And no one knew. Just no one knew. I saw a lot of behavior from other kids that, looking back, there's probably something going on. I knew kids, felt like teens, whose parents sexualized them. I knew girls whose parents had signed off on boob jobs for them when they were 15 and 16. I didn't even realize that was like legal. I don't even know if it is. But young girls, teenage young girls, who had their own houses, who lived in Los Angeles alone while their parents were off in whatever state they're from, doing things alone. Like, that is a recipe for disaster.
Mm-hmm.
It like baffles me how someone could think that was a good idea. And yeah, I mean, stuff like that happens every day. I mean, and with Dan Schneider of Nickelodeon, that's out now. I mean, but there was so many rumblings of that while I was acting. I would audition for his show that was on at the time, Sam and Cat. I would audition for it all the time. And then I remember my mom talking to another parent at an acting class and mentioning that I had a Sam and Cat audition. And the other parent goes, "Oh, you know, if she books that, just stay away from Dan." And
wow.
It's like,
wow.
It's so backwards.
And there's been so many stories about him, like in the public
like
already. Yeah.
Over 10 years ago.
Wow. Wow. Yeah, like I
kind of an industry.
I grew up watching a lot of those sitcoms, and I could never imagine at the time, you know, I could never imagine it being that bad. I think we live in this libidinously schizophrenic world where there's all these forces around us that are corrupting our libidos. Like my libido was corrupted. I think that's what pornography is doing. I think that's what so much in our culture, movies, advertising, all sorts of media are kind of distorting this, our conception of like what love and relationships are supposed to be about. And, you know, pornography is like setting all these unrealistic expectations for people.
And it cheapens it.
Yeah.
It cheapens sex.
Yeah.
And I think sex is really, really important and sacred and special and meant to be private. And pornography cheapens that, and I think it's an insult to sex.
Yeah, no, it definitely is, and it took me a while to realize that, and I think when you actually see the psychological effects that it has on men, that it's like weakening the minds of young people. I think it's kind of like what Jordan Peterson talks about, that when you're seeing naked women, in hundreds of videos like that, like there's not, even the guy in your investigation was saying like it's not normal or healthy or any of that.
To me, it doesn't seem like something that would be good. Like, I don't think anybody like watches and like feels good about themselves after. It's not really something that you're just like, yeah, I'm the best. Like, it's not. It's like ecstasy to like, what the f*** am I doing?
It's like an addiction.
Yeah, even like Jordan Peterson, I know that he says like there's not many studies on it. There's not a lot of like, we don't really know the implications of it. But one thing that he did say that I remember was like, yo, that's kind of true, is like, if you think of like the average guy is able to like see at any time that he wants like thousands of like the hottest women on earth naked at any point that they want, and they're like every time like you jerk off, you're like going through like whatever, like 10 videos, right? That's like 10 girls per like day, and whatever time you're doing in a week, over years, it's like, man, like you've seen like thousands of the hottest girls on earth naked, right? Like in your brain thinks you've seen them in person. Like there's no difference there, right? Like visually you saw it. And I think like that, there's no way that that's like normal. I hope they all balance. Because I don't give a shit.
Your mind doesn't know the difference between seeing someone naked doing sexually explicit things on screen than if they were doing them in person. Your mind can't tell the difference. So over time, you find yourself, unfortunately, like more aroused by what's going on your computer screen than in real life. I mean, so many different problems are presented by use, but that's just one of them.
Yeah.
And these people at these huge companies, one being ALO, of course, parent company of they own hundreds and hundreds of different porn sites. They write porn, they shoot porn, they produce it, they distribute it, they advertise it, they do everything. They're predatory. They go after the user and they keep you clicking. They track your what they call a life path. They track your every move. They track what you're interested in. They try to expand what you're interested in, and they do it purposefully. They're predatory, and in my view, in many ways, the porn user, the porn addict, is a victim. I'm not, it doesn't absolve responsibility, but I really see the average person as a victim of these huge corporations going after the dollar, going after your mind, because it truly, like these free porn sites, it's not free. Like these sites are making money off of your viewership. I think, Pornhub is thought of as the leader of the adult industry, and they really are. They have a monopoly over North American pornography. So we thought if the leader in the adult industry is so poorly moderating their site and purposefully monetizing abuse content, then absolutely that needs to be addressed first. And also, pornography had been a source of, it had just bothered me for a long time, just like how I saw my generation so hooked on. And since I was a kid, I was aware that it was around and other kids were watching it from a very young age. I was exposed to when I was 8, when I was on a play date, and never forgot it.
The same thing happened to me too. 8 years old on a play date.
Yeah.
Exactly the same.
It's so common. And I think that it's something that stuck with me for a long time. And I realized how I was treated at school, how I was treated out in the world, the comments that people made about me, and just how people viewed me and how I interacted with the opposite sex. I realized that use had so much to do with how others treated me and how even my dating experience was before I got married. And I knew that something was up culturally. I knew that pornography use has had a significant impact on our generation. I can't even imagine how it is for the younger generations, but
yeah,
it's just something that always bothered me. And even with TV shows, like scripted content, it's not pornography, but essentially a lot of it is now, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's scenes incorporated into fictional content that's absolutely 100% meant to sexually arouse the viewer.
Yeah.
That's just the norm now.
Yeah. And I think when you're a kid, like when you're exposed, like at 8 years old or something, when you're exposed to porn and, like at that time, I didn't even really know what sex was. So when this was exposed to me, I'm like, what is this? Like, how does this even exist? So now that it's just so easily accessible, and before you're actually in a sexual relationship, when I was abused, I didn't even have my first girlfriend, or somebody that I was sexual with. So there's just so many ways to corrupt the libido and I think it's worse when you don't even really have a clue about what sex is.
Yeah, it's confusing and it's really, really scary.
Yeah.
And I think early exposure to sexual content of any kind has really unknown effects. The scale of how a child can be affected by that is unknown. We know it's bad. We know it's everywhere and it's significant, but I think it's so damaging to a kid.
Yeah, completely. Do you think that your experience in Hollywood too is what also motivated you to expose these secrets going on?
Absolutely. I mean, going through Hollywood and coming out of Hollywood really woke me up regarding how overly sexual our culture is. And in Hollywood, it's, they're producing content that everyone watches, and the people producing it a lot of times are just so weirdly hypersexual. It's disturbing. And I think being around that and kind of waking up from it and coming out and being wow, my entire identity and self-worth was completely rooted in how sexually attractive men find me. What's up with that? Why am I having all these issues right now? And why is my confidence so low? And why do I have these horrible mood swings? Oh, it's because I don't feel sexually attractive right now. Why is my mood so dependent on that? And then I would, kind of go through this series of awakenings or enlightenments, I guess, where I was oh yeah, that guy told me when I was 13 that I was really mature for my age, and he thought I had a sexy spark in me, and that made me feel really good. And then I tried to be that, and I think just our culture's understanding and relationship with sex has been an important issue to me, and definitely contributed to what made me want to investigate Pornhub.
Mm-hmm. At the time when you, because you said how you were questioning is my self-worth dependent on how someone views me sexually? When did you realize that? Was it when you were out of the industry or during?
Toward the end, probably my early 20s. But it was, I was so brainwashed into thinking that, even when I was underage, I was brainwashed into thinking oh, the more people treat me like I'm dangerous jailbait, then the more valuable I am. It became almost like a game, and it was so horrible. I was given this dating book by one of my acting mentors as a teen in my mid-teens, and it detailed how to date and how to have relationships and how to perform sexual acts. And basically, I was told here, read this book. You're not performing your intimate scenes well. I just don't think you have an understanding of the more mature content. I know it's because you've never experienced these things. Read this book and go out and do some of these things, make a Tinder, go on a date.
Yeah.
And, start doing these things. Wow. And that's what I did in pursuit of trying to be a better actor, but also just someone I trusted told me to.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I saw in one of your interviews, that Tinder story that when you were in Hollywood, they told you to go on Tinder, and you were, how old were you when that happened?
I was probably 16.
Wow.
And I remember going.
How do you even get on on the app with that?
Yeah, I lied.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
I lied about my age, and they make it really easy.
Right.
Yeah, and I was meeting men in their 20s and 30s.
Gosh.
And everyone around me, and by the time we met up, they were aware of my age, which is also disturbing. But it really, I just had a huge wake up moment coming on the other side of that, of like, why was I pursuing that type of attention? Why did that make me feel good?
Yeah.
That should be disturbing. I should have been more concerned with schoolwork or friendships, and instead I was focusing on like very sexual things at a young age.
Yeah, and it's, and it doesn't help when there are these adult influences around you trying to assure you that there's nothing wrong with that. Like,
Right. And you're seeking, in your childhood, you're seeking approval and praise from adults.
Yeah.
That feels good.
Yeah.
And the adults around me were praising me when I did something mature, or I did something that seemed sexual, or I did something that they said was attractive in some way, or, or I performed some scene well and I really, pulled it off.
Right.
And it was more mature content. And that's what I was chasing. And it was very damaging. Yeah.
Nowadays, not even the schools are completely safe.
Oh, I know.
I mean, you have pornographic books in the libraries, and parents taking their kids to all-age drag shows and the propaganda like in the classrooms and all that. So it's almost like the institutions don't make these places safe anywhere. I just wanted to, again, like really thank you for everything that you're doing, because it's been so healing for me and for others, and I really hope you keep up all the hard work. So
thank you. I really appreciate it, Dylan.
yeah, I can't wait to see what you do next. So
Thanks.
Pornhub is not just about the failures of one company. It is just a sliver of a much bigger problem that spreads into this multi-billion-dollar industry that preys on the innocence of children. Child pornography, sexual abuse, and sex trafficking are growing at exponential rates. It is truly a pandemic of its own. In fact, there is recent news out of the UK about the increase of child-on-child sexual abuse. The problem has gotten to the point where children are now abusing each other. This is the most devastating tragedy of our time. It is a defining conversation that we all need to be having regardless of our beliefs. Everyone is arguing about Democrats versus Republicans, one side against the other. This is a time where we need to put all of that aside, unite as one, and put a stop to this war on children. My job is to inform and empower you with the truth. Please share this video with friends, family, and wherever you can on social media, because everyone needs to know the seriousness of this issue. Also, please be sure to subscribe to this channel and hit the notification bell for more content. Until next time, thanks for watching Inverted World.